Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate here. And recently, Fallout's Lovecraftian subplot received quite an interesting update. So, for those of you who are out of the loop, since Fallout 3, beginning with the mysterious and spooky Dunwich building, the Fallout franchise has been entertaining a sort of Eldritch side story involving ancient, dark gods and the humans, both pre- and post-war, who have been serving them. Bethesda has always been telling this cosmic horror narrative somewhat indirectly, through the use of Easter eggs, environmental storytelling, and some out-of-game references in the guides. But over the years, it's steadily been growing in its size and scope, and generally just getting a whole lot weirder. I've got a few videos on this channel that pretty thoroughly investigate all of the details and beats of Fallout's Lovecraftian lore up until now, and I'll link them in the description if you're interested or would like a refresher. Frankly, there's just a little too much for me to even summarize in a video like this without going on some major tangents. But the big news is that recently, we've gotten some more Lovecraft stuff. Just a few days ago, on June 3rd, 2025, Fallout 76 received its long-awaited Gone Fission update. Get it? Fission sounds like nuclear fission, yeah, I know. Which primarily introduced a new fishing mechanic, where players can acquire rods, cast lines, and catch an assortment of, well, fish for a variety of rewards. Fishing gameplay itself is very Animal Crossing-like, and frankly has received a somewhat mixed reaction from players, but that's all beside the point of this video. What we're interested in is where this update gets a little Eldritch. You see, upon installing Gone Fission, a new location will become available on the eastern side of the map, within the Mire region, called Fisherman's Rest. And it's one of the strangest places in the Fallout franchise, which is saying something. Fisherman's Rest is this swampy, perpetually gloomy, even during daylight hours, island, accessible through a rinky-dink wooden bridge and supported by a number of equally decrepit wooden platforms. Here we'll find two characters, a certain Captain Raymond Clark, an Irish-accented former fishing boat captain, and a mysterious, uncanny fellow in a yellow rain jacket, known as the Fisherman, who is obviously not entirely a normal human. The Fisherman communicates only in vague grunts, and as we observe in dialogue with Captain Clark, seems to be psychically controlling the captain in some way. Almost like he's puppeted the man and using him as a vessel to negotiate with us. Take a listen to our opening dialogue.
Ah, a fresh face. Come to volunteer your services, have ye?
That fish thing pointed me to you.
Oh, him? He's truly a monstrous creature. Oh, he's truly a fine specimen, isn't he? A gentle soul. But never mind about that. You seem like the capable type, ideal for the job at hand. He demands that ye... Oh, we'd like ye to aid us in catching the fish round these parts. Bring us whatever ye haul out of the water. The stranger, the better.
Yeah, it's, bizarre. Did I mention that both of these characters are standing in front of a giant hermit crab who is using a fishing boat called the Linda Lee as its shell? It's implied that the Linda Lee was originally Captain Clark's vessel. Note that this is the same kind of hermit crab that we originally first saw in Fallout 4's Far Harbor DLC. Anyway, Raymond Clark will go on to reluctantly explain that the Fisherman wants you to bring him back 3 fish for reasons. What is the creature I just spoke to?
He's some kind of a... He's a swell fella. He just looks a little different from you and I is all.
are you feeling okay?
Why, I'm feeling as spry as a sea breeze, of course. Why do you ask?
Why do you want me to fish?
I think he wants to use them. Oh, don't worry yourself about the particulars, friend. You just bring us back 3 fish and be snappy about it. Aye, so be it.
Now, long story short, we're supposed to use the game's new fishing features to catch 3 fish and return them to Captain Clark. Upon doing so, he'll order us to chop our catches up into bits at a cooking station and drop them off in the hermit crab's feeding trough, or its chum trough. And in exchange, the creature will spit out a randomized reward. At this point, our introduction to the fishing mechanic will be complete, and we'll be able to return to Fisherman's Rest at any time with freshly crafted fish bits to give to the crab for a reward. Alternatively, we'll also be able to sell our fish to the fisherman himself, who, despite being nonverbal, acts as a vendor, though the only items he can sell us are bait. From here, we can speak to Captain Clark for a final time, where he'll ominously encourage us to keep fishing for, mysterious reasons, and some final lines of dialogue will become available, which provide us with only the most vague insight on the nature of the mysterious fishermen, the hermit crab, and their strange intentions. How did you get here?
In truth, I haven't the slightest inkling. 1 minute I was... What I be meaning to say is that we've travelled in from the east, sampling as many catches as this place has to offer. And now we're looking to share this ancient art form and sell quality equipment to fine customers such as yourself.
From the east. Directly east of the mire is Washington, D.C., and the ruins of the capital wasteland. Perhaps he means to say north or southeast, but this is an especially ominous and likely deliberate direction for Bethesda to call out. What do you do with all the fish?
My mind's a fog on that one. But never ye mind that. Bring us the fish we ask for, and maybe it'll jog me memory. That monster is the one... That elegant crustacean is the Linda Lee. She is a mighty fine vessel. She deals with the fish that my friend here no longer wants. And she carries us from place to place.
That's all for now.
Aye, so be it.
I've gotta go. And, well, that's about as far as dialogue goes. We can periodically bring back some fish for a reward, or sell them to the fisherman and buy bait, but no further dialogue or quest markers will become available, and we're left to ponder the bizarre origins and nature of this fisherman thing, and the psychic hold that it seems to have over poor old Captain Clark. Lucky for us, the surrounding campsite does afford us some additional clues on what's going on, though they create more questions than they answer. 2 diary excerpts, consisting of a total of 5 entries, can be found at the camp, left behind by Captain Clark. They seem to have been written a while ago. They read, quote, Entry 1. Sold most of our catches for far cheaper than we ought this month. But I just can't bear to see the state of the poor souls that we meet in the ports. Least this way they can fill their bellies for a night. The men think I've gone soft, but they're forgetting how easy we've got it. Entry 2. Spied some almighty shadows beneath the ship of late. These waters grow more treacherous with every passing day. If it's not the sea herself, it's the creatures within. Entry 3. Blessed Poseidon, have mercy on our wretched souls. This storm has raged at us for 3 days and nights. It didn't give us the faintest warning of its coming neither. She better blow over soon, for the Linda Lee can't take much more of this abuse. Entry 4. I feel I must be dreaming. I've woken up ashore, God knows how. Flashes of terrible visions plague my mind. I'll be damned whether I can tell they're nightmares or memories, though. Same figure, always lurking in them. It's hard to know what's real or not anymore, especially now that I'm plagued with these strange urges. Entry 5. Been following them for so long now. Doing all kinds of strange things. Anything to stop the pain. Find myself in agony often. Or is it ecstasy? Unquote. Also, within the camp, we can locate 3 holotapes, which seem to have been recorded by Clark sometime shortly after he wrote these diary entries. Take a listen.
Ever since I washed up on these shores, my mind's felt more and more adrift. I'm hoping this might be a way to keep me anchored. My name is Captain Raymond Clark. My father was a bosun, and so was his father before him. My mother's name was Deirdre, and she had long flaxen hair. This is foolish. How do I stop this thing? It's been a few weeks, or months, since I recorded one of these. Whole seasons seem to go by without my noticing. My head's been so clouded I can barely keep track of what state we're in. Come on, Raymond, hold it together. My name is Captain Raymond Clark. My father was a bosun. My mother's name was... Oh, confound it! My name is Captain. Captain. I'm a captain. It's my job to fish. To catch as many fish as we can. My father was a fish, and my mother...
Thus, evidently, Captain Clark must have at one point led a crew of several men. Eventually, their vessel was overtaken by a storm, and Clark awoke ashore alone, and suddenly plagued by terrible visions and nightmares, where he was stalked by what he calls the same strange figure. Subsequently, he recorded the holotapes we just listened to, which further document the erosion of his psyche. Clearly, sometime between now and then, the creature that is the Fisherman revealed itself and fully took control of Raymond Clark, turning the poor man into its psychic puppet, who the creature is now using to encourage humans to fish for some reason. One of the most uncanny partnerships we've seen. But it gets even weirder. In a moment, we'll talk a little bit more about the nature of the Fisherman and the character's uncanny resemblance to some creatures that have previously appeared in the Fallout franchise. But first, there's another couple of items I'd like to show you at this camp, 'cause they're pretty sus. On a whitish wooden table, next to the Fisherman himself, sitting in front of a pole hook, will be a note titled, "The Deep Note." And just take a look at it. It features an ominous, hand-drawn picture, alongside some deliberately vague, scrawled text that the community has yet to decipher. It's probable that Bethesda deliberately made this writing as illegible as possible in order to keep the meaning vague. I like to think that I can make out the words "learn" and "there" in the top portion, whereas on the left, "not" and "them" may be present. And finally at the bottom, perhaps it says, "of my kind" there, but honestly, these are just my guesses. The pictures drawn on the note, however, are far less ambiguous. At the foreground is a towering obelisk of some kind. You'll note that beneath the Dunwich building, a large Eldritch structure we could visit back in Fallout 3, which once served as the corporate headquarters of a company known as Dunwich Borers LLC, we could find a similar-looking obelisk being prayed to by a number of feral ghouls. As later games would reveal, the Dunwich Corporation was heavily involved in the production of mining equipment and rock tunneling drills, and they owned several mines across the pre-war United States. But this was all just a convenient front for its founder, a wealthy, insidious man named Richard Dunwich, to satisfy his obsession with the occult. Through Dunwich borers, Richard tunneled his way down to access various Lovecraftian ruins and perform dark yet unknown rituals, including human sacrifice. The same themes of cosmic horror are likely involved with the Fisherman and the creature's bizarre plans, whatever those might be. Furthermore, above the obelisk, scrawled on the note, is a drawing clearly depicting the interloper, a strange creature that lies in a chamber at the bottom of Lucky Hole Mine near Fort Defiance in the Savage Divide. The nature of the interloper remains very mysterious. It's one of Fallout 76's big mysteries, and it's kinda just this Lovecraftian thing we can find in the mine without much more context. In recent updates, Lucky Hole Mine has become occupied by Mothman cultists, who can be found praying to the thing. One of our only direct sources of lore on the creature come from two holotapes left behind by a man named Jeff Lane. The first can be found in his abandoned apartment near Point Pleasant. Take a listen.
There are other things in this world now that cannot be explained. The end of the world has awoken. Something. We all know the Mothman is out there, stalking and watching us, but what of the unseen? There are things we can only glimpse in our minds. Great entities beyond our comprehension. The Mothman is a creature more like us than the unknowable horrors in the peripheral vision of our subconscious minds. No longer just a false memory now. I have heard a tale of this entity made real, deep in the earth. And the storyteller was mad by any reckoning, but his story, no less true. My name is Jeff Lane, and I will lay bare this watcher. No matter how deep I must go, I will come to know the true nature of the interloper.
Then, at a campsite within Lucky Hole Mine, that clearly once belonged to Mr. Lane, we can find his second and last holotape.
The interloper is here. I can feel it clearly. Last night, in visions more real than the senses, it called to me, and I go to it now. Signs are all around that I am not the only one to hear the call, though where they have failed, I will not, for it summons me alone in the end. Before I go deeper, for the truth revealed changes all. By its very nature, let it be known, in this world, the interloper has chosen Jeff Lane as the conduit of the unknowable. Together, the hidden reality becomes manifest at long last.
These two holotapes represent the bulk of the lore on the interloper we have, and we're left to speculate on the origins and nature of the creature. Note that Jeff Lane mentions being called to the being in visions while he sleeps. Likewise, Captain Clark experienced visions in his dreams foreshadowing the arrival of the Fisherman, though poor Clark was much less enthusiastic. Now, funnily enough, the Gone Fission update also slightly changes the chamber where we find the interloper at the bottom of Lucky Hole. The creature will still be down here in all its glory, being worshipped by Mothman cultists, but now several baskets of fish will also be present, which weren't here prior to the update. The implication being that the interloper is being fed these fish by the cultists, and this is likely tied in to the Fisherman's broader motivations. Perhaps the Fisherman hopes to facilitate the interloper's growth in some way. Moving on from Lucky Hole Mine, also within Fisherman's Rest is this clown doll that we've seen before. Last year, during Fallout 76's Atlantic City update, which allowed players to travel to Atlantic City, New Jersey for an expedition, we've talked a bit about this before on the channel, so I don't want to waste too much of your time. Link in the description for more thorough video, but basically, on Atlantic City's boardwalk, there was this locked shack that if you broke into, you'd find a similar clown doll inside, specifically within a skeleton's ribcage. And on a table nearby would be a pretty horrifying picture of a clown that if you chose to interact with, would trigger an Easter egg, where a clown would follow you around the expedition for the remainder of your time on the boardwalk. The clown wouldn't do anything, it would just follow you at a distance and always remain out of bounds, but it's freaking weird, man. The significance of this insidious jester is still not well understood, but evidently, the Fisherman may be connected in some way, given that this is the only other location in the game where we can find such a doll. Now, leaving Fisherman's Rest, there's another location that got a bit of an update with Gone Fishin'. Big Maw is an enormous sinkhole located just a ways west of Haven Church in the Mire region, and as we've discussed before on this channel, it has a sort of Eldritch vibe. The area is littered with Mothman cultist totems, and at the bottom of the sinkhole, we can even look at what appears to be the remains of human sacrifices. On a nearby picnic table, there lies a note, which provides some context, titled Another Spring, which reads, quote, "I don't know why I came to the Big Maw. I never considered why we called it that. As far back as I can remember, that's just what it was called. I remember family picnics here, and the older kids climbing down to swim in the summer. Now, though, there can be no question. I cannot say for certain which of the circumstances has caused it to open. I do know that I must go inside. Is it the smell? The sound, the warmth? Even as I write these last words, I am impatient to look back into the yawning abyss, the true Maw, the ancient namesake of Big Maw." Unquote. From this note, we can deduce that this area was something of a local picnic spot prior to the Great War. The sinkhole seems to have existed even back then, given the author's mention of older kids climbing down to swim, but the text also may imply that part of the hole opened more recently, perhaps shortly before or after the bombs fell. Whatever the case, the author suggests that something called them to the Maw. They were being drawn in by some mysterious, perhaps psychic force. Judging by the wealth of skeletons at the bottom, whatever was driving them here probably took their life as well. Beneath the waters at the bottom of the Maw, we can also find this prehistoric aquatic skeleton just kinda lying there. This, for one, to me suggests that the Maw must have recently grown deeper, as it's unlikely that the pre-war government would have tolerated a massive ancient skeleton like this in a popular swimming hole, and two, it further implies an eldritch significance. The skeleton's model and texture actually seem to have been ripped from Fallout 4's Far Harbor expansion, and appears to be that of a humpback whale. Strangely, we can actually find these humpback skeletons all throughout Appalachia, specifically at cultist and eldritch sites, including at the top of Lucky Hole Mine. This is odd because West Virginia isn't exactly known for its robust marine mammal fossil record. While this region of the United States was once submerged by water, no such humpback fossils have ever been recovered. So it's likely that Bethesda is just reusing these Far Harbor assets with a more cryptic intention, i.e., they're meant to imply some kind of yet unknown monster. Anyway, we've already discussed these elements before last year. Here's what's new. If you choose to fish using the new mechanic within the waters of Big Maw, there's an ever so small chance that you can catch this thing. A unique legendary fish called Rill Takanoth, Maw Begotten. That name, Rill Takanoth, has an unknown meaning. It's clearly Lovecraftian in a sense, but my research hasn't found anything definitive. Begotten, however, always means the same thing. It means born of, i.e., this fish was born of the Maw itself. This is an obviously eldritch creature that seems to have been mutated not just by radiation, but by the more Lovecraftian forces of the Maw itself. Indeed, it seems to suggest that in the Fallout universe, rads aren't the only thing that can change an organism's biology. There have been previous hints at this before. The Dunwich locations in Fallouts 3 and 4 seem to have been independently ghoulifying people, And the interloper obviously has something special going on, but Big Maw just adds more evidence to the pile. Perhaps, just as the Maw clearly has an ability to psychically draw people into it, the Fisherman is tuned into a similar power and leverages it to more directly puppet individuals. This whole tale also invites comparisons to the 1931 H.P. Lovecraft novella, The Shadow over Innsmouth. Shadow over Innsmouth is a short story written from the perspective of an anonymous narrator who, while on tour of various New England heritage sites, finds himself intrigued by rumors of a mysterious, somewhat disturbing town widely feared and disliked by outsiders. Our unnamed author eventually visits Innsmouth, intrigued by tales of unique architecture, and is immediately stricken by the town's run-down, dilapidated nature and the bizarre appearance of its residents, who he describes as looking almost inhuman, with bulging eyes, wide lips, webbed hands, and strangely textured skin. They're fish-like. The behavior of Innsmouth's residents is even more bizarre than their looks. They move stiffly, often seem to gravitate towards synchronized groups, and are strangely evasive of our author and his questions. Eventually, the protagonist is able to bribe a local drunk into revealing the truth behind Innsmouth's peculiarities. Evidently, in the early 1800s, a wealthy local trader and ship captain named Obed Marsh visited the South Pacific, where he made contact with worshippers of the Deep Ones. Note that the note we found earlier in this video is called the Deep Note. There seems to be a connection here. Anyway, in Shadow over Innsmouth, the Deep Ones are described as powerful, godlike, eldritch beings who live in the ocean's depths, and would provide their faithful with wealth and a limitless supply of aquatic meat in exchange for human sacrifices and worship. Obed Marsh returned from the Pacific embracing a new dark pantheon, and was rewarded with a tremendous amount of wealth and financial prosperity. This, in turn, enabled him to gain more and more influence over the town of Innsmouth and enabled him to recruit more followers, establishing a cult to the Deep Ones. As part of the arrangement, the Eldritch gods would also interbreed with some humans, producing these hybrid offspring who would gradually develop aquatic features and eventually join the Deep Ones in the sea later in life. This is responsible for the strange appearance of many of Innsmouth's residents, and led to the town's eventual isolation. The story ultimately concludes with our author getting freaked out and fleeing the town, only to be plagued by strange dreams and visions. He later discovers that he himself is actually a descendant of Obed Marsh, and he gradually begins noticing the development of fish-like features in his skin. While freaked out at first, the protagonist eventually accepts his fate as a great and noble destiny, and he returns to Innsmouth to take his place among the town's Eldritch elite. Those are the spark notes, anyway. Shadow over Innsmouth is like a 30,000-word story, and we lack the time to investigate every minute detail, but it's clear that 76's developers may be drawing some inspiration from here. The Fisherman seems like a character ripped straight out of Innsmouth, and themes of fish remain paramount. Still, there are differences. The Fisherman in Fallout 76 wants you to fish, whereas in Lovecraft's story, the Deep Ones provide their worshippers with a limitless supply of fish, as well as wealth. Furthermore, some players have noted that the Fisherman himself actually bears a striking resemblance to Mirelurk Kings from Fallout 3. Mirelurk Kings were half-human, half-amphibian mutants the player could encounter in the Capital Wasteland, often in the company of normal Mirelurk crabs, who they often led. Hence the designation Mirelurk Kings. Anyway, while Kings could use their claws in combat, they preferred to attack the player at a distance with these sonic blast attacks. The nature and specifics of Mirelurk Kings and their sonic waves were not well defined by Fallout 3, nor any of the later games' lore. It's known that certain amphibians can communicate through ultrasonic sound, so it's conceivable that in the Fallout universe, such an ability has mutated into a powerful range attack. Furthermore, the Fallout 3 Point Lookout DLC introduced Swamp Lurk Kings and Queens, greenish variants of the Mirelurk Kings who resided in the swamps of Point Lookout, Virginia, and they spat a greenish acid rather than used sonic attacks. The Swamp Lurks had a color pattern that the Fisherman seems to better resemble. Fallout 3's concept art featured depictions of Mirelurk Kings using tools, weapons, and even fishing nets anchored with human skulls, suggesting that the developers may have envisioned these creatures as being more intelligent and material than the game itself ultimately presented them as. Interestingly enough, New Vegas featured an analogous enemy called Lake Lurks, also kind of greenish looking and resembling of the Fisherman who attacked with sonic waves. Oddly enough though, New Vegas's Lake Lurks had no relationship with Mirelurks. We wouldn't see them together. Instead, the creatures tended to travel in packs of their kin, and sometimes independently, around the Lake Mead region of the map. So, perhaps the Fisherman is actually a Lake Lurk. Now, Fallout 4 and 76 for that matter also featured Mirelurk Kings, but by then the enemy had been completely redesigned, becoming obviously much less human-like and more amphibian. Frankly, the Mirelurk Kings from Fallout 4 and onward seem to be an entirely different enemy biologically. Perhaps the Mirelurk Kings and Swamp Lurks and Lake Lurks from Fallout 3 and New Vegas are their own thing, a mysterious, somewhat Lovecraftian entity mutated by more than just radiation. Though that's just a wild theory. Thus, for now, we're left to speculate about the Fisherman's true identity. Thankfully, Fallout 76's developers have commented on the character and the broader mysteries brought forth with this update, although their statements have been very reserved. On May 29th, 2025, just a couple days before the Gone Fission update officially dropped, though after it was available on the PC public test server for a while, a community AMA was held on Bethesda's official Discord, where Fallout 76 creative director and producer Jonathan Rush, as well as Kevin Winicki, a senior systems designer, answered a number of community questions moderated by community managers Rich Stanford and Danielle Violet-Light. I'll leave links in the description to the full AMA and a transcript so you can check it all out for yourself. But at one point, Rich Stanford begins asking the developers a question on behalf of a user named Ravenwolf. Here's how it goes. Rich, Ravenwolf asks, quote, "Since at least Skyline Valley, and even before then, a lot of things added to 76 have made noticeable references to the Capital Wasteland. Most recently, the story of the captain and his fishy companion seems to imply that they're from the Capital Wasteland, with the Fisherman even looking similar to Fallout 3 style Mirelurks and Lake Lurks. Is the plan to add more creations from Fallout 3 or New Vegas into Fallout 76, potentially expanding towards the Capital Wasteland?" Jonathan Rush, the game's senior creative director, responds, quote, "You know, I think one distinct advantage Fallout 76 has over other Fallout titles, even the show, is that we take place furthest back in the timeline. That gives us a lot of room to play creatively, introducing new things that may have been lost in later games, or pre-configuring things that show up later. The Capital Wasteland is a really popular setting, and it's relatively close to where Fallout 76 takes place. So, there's always a possibility. Whether that actually happens, I'm not going to say, but it's definitely possible." Unquote. Shortly after, Rich asks another, similar question on behalf of a user named Theo. Quote, "My question is, are these plot points building up to a potential return to the Capital Wasteland, kind of like the previous question, or an encounter with the god or its representatives? Or is it more background lore that may or may not be revisited in a future update?" Unquote. Clearly, the community likes the idea that Raymond Clark and the Fisherman could be from the Capital Wasteland, and hopes that their inclusion may anticipate more DC themes making their way into 76. Once again, Rush responds, Good question. You know, what I think makes that story element so powerful, and this isn't an answer for whether there's going to be or not, is how little is said. There's so much mystery surrounding it, and that's what makes it so intriguing. We love finding little parallels where we can touch on other elements from other games without breaking lore. Something like that. Maybe a tie-in with some of our cultists could be fun. Whether that's being discussed now or not, I'm not going to say here. But those are the kinds of things we love to poke at." Unquote. Finally, Danielle Violet Light asks one last question about the mystery here on behalf of a user named Flackles. Quote, "So this is from Flackles. In the latest update, we got to meet the mysterious Fisherman, his unwilling assistant, Captain Raymond, and his partner/mobile home, Linda Lee. My question is, what exactly is the Fisherman? Many people have speculated on what he could be. Is he some kind of sapient Mirelurk king, implying that he's an animal that's somehow achieved human-level intelligence? Or is he a severely mutated human being that's lost his ability to speak somewhere along the way? Perhaps he's just a wasteland wacko in a very convincing-looking fish suit. Inquiring minds would like to know." Jonathan's response: "Well, I am a member of the inquiring minds that want to know. But like my previous answer, that's where all the fun lies. In getting those questions and thinking about those questions and just having them in your head. If everything were just exposition, this is exactly where it comes from, this was the date of its birth and its exact genetic makeup, it takes all the mystery out of it, right? So perhaps down the road, with more fishing updates, more of their story will unfold. Or perhaps not. That's kind of part of the fun. Those are great questions. I love how you're thinking, but I don't want to do the character or the story a disservice by laying out the exact details of who that being is and what they're doing." Unquote. Thus, it's clear from their AMAs that Fallout 76's developers prefer to remain tight-lipped about the nature of these new Lovecraftian additions. There are clear themes drawn from H.P. Lovecraft's famous Shadow over Innsmouth short story, but the Fisherman, Captain Raymond Clark, and the Interloper all fit into Fallout's own unique Eldritch cosmology in their own ways, and we can likely expect more crumbs of information in the future. Though, just like the Fisherman, they'll probably bring more questions than they do answers. That about does it for today's video, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed. Believe it or not, I consider this to be a rather short, one-off video that I've been knocking out kind of fast over the last week. I've got some longer, multi-hour videos in the works right now, which I allowed myself to get briefly distracted from when this update dropped just a few days ago. After uploading those previous massive Dunwich investigations, I kinda consider it my duty to keep you all informed about Fallout's Lovecraftian subplot, and this was an extension of that responsibility. And of course, if anything else comes up in the future, I'll be sure to update you guys about it. What do you guys think is going on here? Do you think he's a mutated human in the style of a Mirelurk king, or perhaps his own kind of creature? Where are they coming from? Are they truly from the Capital Wasteland? Have you found anything in this update that you think I might have missed? Leave a comment down below. I'd love to know your thoughts. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.